Welcome to Health and Safety Conversations. Here's your host, Tom Bourne.
Hi, and welcome to Health and Safety Conversations. I'm your host, Tom Bourne, and with me today is the awesome Gavin Coyle, all the way from Dublin. Gavin, how are you?
Tom, I'm great. I'm really looking forward to talking to you about all things health and safety today.
That's fantastic, Gavin. I've done a little bit of research on you leading into the interview, but there are many people who, perhaps in the Southern Hemisphere, haven't heard of you. For those, could you tell us a bit about you, your journey in safety, and more importantly, what you're currently up to?
Yeah, so I left school and went straight into the construction sector. Started working as a labourer on construction projects, and at the time, there was a large influx into Ireland from multinational American companies that were looking to get a footprint into Europe, and they basically were using Ireland as their first land base, if you like, to build these hyperscale projects. So with them, they brought a lot of standards and models on health and safety that we weren't used to, because we just hadn't seen that sort of scale of construction in the past in Ireland. And so I suppose the contractor that I was working for, they didn't really, there was no such thing really at the time of a full-time safety officer in Ireland back in those days. Yeah, it's a requirement now, and it's actually brought into legislation. But back then, you might have one person looking after health and safety, but you wouldn't have a full-time health and safety presence on a project. And so the finger was pointed at me because it came straight out of school that, hey, we don't have time for this, and you're going to do that. So yeah, I went to a meeting and I kind of got labeled as the safety officer for the project. Again, no formal kind of a qualification, which wouldn't happen today. And it just showed sort of how far back behind the times we were. That, I was given that sort of responsibility at a very young age to assess the risk of the guys, which also gives you an indication of the culture. And it wasn't just that contractor, it was the general culture in the industry or in the country at the time. Moving forward, I suppose that company started then using me for all of their projects. So I would, travel to other parts of Europe and mainly UK, and oversee the health and safety, or see what way health and safety is being managed on those projects, and then working with the site managers to try and get the best out of them for health and safety. And at that time, in fairness to the company that I was working for, they did pay for my education. I suppose within the first 2 years, I was on a project, a Four Seasons hotel project that we were building, and got a severe knock on the cabin door to say that there was a man down. And we rushed out to the project, and there was one of our young guys had fallen headfirst into a hole. So we got him out of the hole, and myself and himself went into the ambulance. Now, he was in a lot of distress, there's a lot of trauma, and he died from his injuries less than 2 days later. And it was shocking. When you look back at it now, there was no counselling or no support services or no discussion, even never mind me, but even for the workers that had a good bond with this young guy. I suppose then within 24 months of that, I had a personal tragedy where my brother drowned along with two other of his friends. They just finished up school and they were throwing a football to each other and at the Atlantic Ocean, and a freak wave came in and brought them out to sea. And I think it was about 2 days before we found the body. But I suppose from a personal point of view and from a career point of view, I had two very traumatic moments that sort of shaped me as a person in terms of where I was going with health and safety in particular, and whether I was cut out for it or whether I had the stomach. It's all right saying that you're going to do these jobs, and money makes the world go around. But when the reality of health and safety hits home, which is what happened in that case, I had to have a serious chat with myself whether I, had the stomach and whether I had the tools to go into this market. So got a lesson at a very young age, which stood to me, to be fair. But I can see from other people, and I've actually had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about how they react in, catastrophic, traumatic situations, and everybody acts differently. And for some reason, I was calm and collected, and I was measured. Whether that was just trying to take it all in, I don't know, but it was just the way I reacted. And I suppose other people would react differently. And, we don't really know how we're going to react until something like that is put in front of us.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Here I am today. Yeah, I've a couple of businesses in health and safety, and I've had businesses in the past, and we represent some major companies in the Coyle Group in terms of helping them understand the legislative requirements, and then talking about strategy, but also supplying them with manpower, health and safety manpower. So wind energy, utilities, and power generation. And then we have this Gavin-Coyle.com website, which is targeted at helping construction owners who might think that health and safety is too much of a mountain to climb and it's cost too much. And we want to tell them that that's not the case. And we've got great case studies and demonstrations and tools and techniques of how they can work smartly, work safely, and they can actually turn their safety department into a profit center. Hence the book I wrote, Workplace Safety on a Budget.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Now, safety as profit and compliance center, not just compliance operated. It's a good catchphrase. It's something that when I heard it, it made me think. Can you explain how that works? Because I would suggest that 99% of businesses see safety purely as a compliance type exercise. Yes, they do care about their people, but in the end, the business is there to make money. And so they know there might be penalties attached, but they're basically trying to just meet legal obligations. Is that fairly accurate?
Okay. Let's just call a spade a spade. The health and safety people and the health and safety influence is not getting to the boardroom level, and health and safety influencing is not being addressed at the board table. Health and safety would be brought up in the first 5 minutes. Yes, it would, 100%. And they would talk about leading, lagging indicators, accidents and incidents, and then the overall budget on safety and where they're at with that. And then the conversation moves straight into growth and scale and operations and general operations. Health and safety then is finished at that stage. If you're lucky to be at the table as a safety professional, which I have been, and it's a very rare occasion that you'd come across health and safety professionals in the boardroom at that level. And this is where we feel the problem is because the old adage, if you like, of telling the business owner, if you don't do this, you're going to go to jail. If you don't do this, you're going to get fined. If you don't do this, it's kind of the fear factor, The business owners are desensitized to that information now these days. That doesn't mean anything to them anymore. They've heard it all before. It's kind of like the boy cried wolf and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They know they do enough. They know that they're not reckless. So they know that, the chances of going to jail is kind of slim. Yes, they don't want to kill people. But this old communication method of telling them that they're going to go to jail and they're going to be prosecuted and they're going to lose loads of money, it doesn't wash anymore. Mm. The only thing that's going to win the hearts and minds of the business owners is to tell them, look, I think if we work together, we could reduce the cost of health and safety by up to 50% for the business. However, with a caveat to that, the saving that we make, I want you to use some of that, yes, for your profit and for your cash flow, 100%. But I also want you to use it for repurposing into better equipment. I want you to hire smarter people that cost more money, that are going to bring us forward as a company. And I want you to invest in programs that actually have an impact on the business from a safety perspective that we can see and we can measure that success. And I don't see enough of that. And that's why we've got a number of different avenues for business owners to look at in terms of how to turn this whole model of health and safety into a profit center for them. And we've got some really good case studies of where we've worked with companies, and one particular where they've made over €1 million based on that logic of looking at safety as a profit center, not just a compliance center.
Yeah, excellent. I would think you grab the attention of any CEO with cutting the safety budget by 50%. Do you have trouble with the second part of that about you are going to be committed to reinvesting some of that back into the business for better equipment, better safety measures, etc., like that?
I haven't at this point. I haven't, because it all depends on the type of company you're talking to and the type of budget that they have. If they're not spending that much on safety anyway, up to 50%, it's not going to be that much that they would be able to reinvest.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're talking to small to medium enterprises, you're talking about a small enough saving on the capex or the overall budget for that particular department. However, it might actually pay for the likes of, a bonus scheme for the people within the company to sort of, have KPIs in terms of how they manage safety within the different projects that they're working on, stuff like that. We've seen evidence of that and said, right, we've saved that money. What are we going to do? We're not going to spend it on more of that training, because that training has had no impact on the business whatsoever. But what we can do is we can incentivize the guys on a particular project, because if they do well on this particular project, it means we're going to win more projects. So, we're going to have some KPIs for the guys to meet. And if they do that, we're going to give them a bonus at the end of the year. Things like that have happened. In other cases, we've looked at training models where companies have spent absolute fortune on health and safety programs, where they've kind of it's been marketed to them really well, and the marketing of some of these programs is totally embracing and endearing, and you go, oh my god, I have to have this and all the other construction companies have this. And when you look at what falls out of some of these programs, you go, you're actually getting no value for that program whatsoever. And you go, well, what do you mean? I says, well, have you measured? And this is a thing that we found as a constant theme and talking to clients, regardless of your size. They're not measuring the impact of what the output was of some of these training courses, and therefore they can't turn around and have an open discussion with me, for example, on the return on investment that they got for all the thousands that they spend on some of these programs. So there's a lesson for the companies that are multi-billion-pound companies, all the way down to the one man in a van type company, of being smart with your money. Your money's, you've worked hard enough to make this money. You've put a lot of time, resources into sort of your business. And so, we don't want you just to throw out the money. That's what we're saying here, is we don't want you just to sort of start throwing money at different areas because you have a bit of a slush fund that you've built up, or it makes it look good in front of the client. No, we want you to be targeted with your money. And a book goes through every different department within any business. And it's funny, when we were writing the book, when I was going through the research, health and safety has a touch point in every part of every facet of every business. And so we were able to go into every different department and look at it and go, okay, so it's an office. So what are we looking at here? Well, it's full of paper. It's everywhere. Okay, can we reduce the paper within the office? So it means then that we might not have to do manual handling for a whole section of the office, because now they're not doing any manual handling of lifting printing paper out of the filing cabinets over to the copier and so on and so forth. It might seem like a very minor type of a scenario, but if you multiply the amount of offices and the amount of locations and the amount of times that you're doing training and the amount of people that you come into your business that you have to retrain because you've lost other people on these programs and stuff like that, why have we not just looked at trying to take the paper out of the equation? It goes back to actually the logics of risk assessment as well. If you look at the hierarchy of control, however, some people feel that they can't get away from having the paperwork. We have to have this. Do you? Show me and demonstrate. Let's have a look at an analytical approach towards how much paper do you actually need and how much are you going through and how much is actually, it costing you on this, and then add the training costs on top of that, and add the amount of time that people are losing to do this training. And so that was another good exercise we did with a company. Is they were able to tell themselves, well, we don't need to do this training anymore. We don't need the paper for that particular department, but for other departments, yeah, there was no getting away from it. They needed to have the paper that they had. But now they were starting to put in systems that, they could grow those systems as a sort of an ecosystem within their own business.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I'm just having a look at the book right now. For those who don't know, you can grab it from Amazon.
Amazon.com. It's from the States. For some reason, it's only distributed from their States Amazon.com website. It's not from some of our UK and Ireland guys are not happy because of Brexit, was what I was told.
Blame everything on Brexit.
Yeah. Blame everything on Brexit. Yeah.
Yes.
But, so yeah, really, Tom, the workplace safety and the budgets, like it kind of took off in that sense. Like my main goal was to try to get to the small to medium enterprise, where my own business model had excluded all of that market, because we had built up a cost base within our own business, Coyle Group, that we couldn't actually provide services to the small to medium enterprises, because we just had a high cost structure of the guys that we were using. So it really came out of an angle to sort of, how can we do something for the small to medium enterprises? And then when we were talking to these guys, they were like, oh, okay, safety costs too much money, and it's too complicated, and it's too this and it's too that. But it's not. Unfortunately, we do have people within the safety industry that nearly revel on the complexity, on what the perceived complexity of safety is. And it's not that complex, and it shouldn't be made complex. It should be part of your whole tool process as a component, bricklayer, carpenter, electrician, plumber, whatever it is. It's part of your whole setup as a professional tradesperson. And it's something that you do as part of an integrated approach to delivering the job. It's not a bolt-on.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's part of a holistic process. All right, going to ask you a tough question. In your experience, small to medium businesses in Ireland, do business owners in that sort of area care about safety, or is it still, like you've mentioned before, a pain in the neck, a compliance mechanism?
I think the day of coming across the reckless attitude of just get it done is gone. I'm confident that day. I remember that day, or just get it done. I don't care. Just get it done. That day is gone. The language has changed, if anything, Tom, that I see over the years. It's much more of well, I need to be careful here, the way I approach the worker, and the way I talk to the worker, and the way we interact and communicate, because the legislation does carry so much weight on the worker and then on the employee, that the employer has no other option but to make sure that they have their P's and Q's in order when they're going to, discuss or have a discussion about health and safety. So that's a plus, if anything, because, people are not slaves. Yes, they're still the master servant role, but the language was a big thing, and how people were being spoken down to. That day is gone. People, secondly, people in from my observation, people are not reckless, or they don't mean to be reckless, and they don't go out of their way to be reckless. They genuinely want to get the job done.
Yeah.
It's if anything, what we found is, where there's one person that has total control of the whole business and total say, and everybody cannot do or move or say anything without the authorization for that one person, That is the only areas that we found where there's been a major problem with health and safety. And I'm not talking about a small to medium enterprise. I've come across, a couple of $100 million dollar companies where there's one man in charge, and it's this dictatorship and the fear factor. And by Jesus, he's done it, and he's a millionaire. So you better just take his word for it. And you hear the stories about how he, went in and challenged this fella, and he, shoved him across the table and said, "Look, if you don't get this done, you're not going to have the job." And because he had the power of the money, and he'd gone, he'd gone through the whole stages of entrepreneurship up to multi-millionaire status. People were sitting back and going, "Well, this guy has done it, so there must be something. He must be doing something right." But to be honest with you, it's so isolated. You couldn't tar the industry with the same brush.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. You may have already tinkered with the answer for this earlier, but in your opinion, does larger legal penalties make a difference to workplace safety at the front line?
Yes, they do. And I would only say that yes, they do. It's only happened in the last couple of years, and I'm nearly sure in Australia they're thinking on the same logic. So there was a landmark case in Ireland, for example, where the judge said that he was going to reserve the judgment on the actual case until he's seen the balance sheet and the profit and loss spreadsheet from the audited accounts from the previous years. And so he was going to make a determination on the fine based on the spreadsheets that was being presented to him by the audited accounts. And I'm not sure if that's the case in Australia, but that actually was, a win-win, because it was a landmark case, and it only happened a couple of years ago. But in that case, now we're starting to see you're going to get a fine, a slap on the wrist. It's not a slap on the wrist anymore. Your whole business can just nosedive because this judge has it within his own authority that he can look at your balance sheet and make a determination on the fine based on your profits and your net profit.
Yeah, that's significant. All right. You've been in the industry for like 25 odd years, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there one person or one author or one book that's significantly changed or shaped your views on safety?
I would say no to that. I don't think you ever stop learning, and I don't think anyone has the silver bullet. I don't think anyone has the, I think, again, going back to, there's a lot of noise in health and safety. There's a lot of so-called people that are, I'd call them charlatans, that are out shouting from the top, and, and they gather a bit of an audience, and they go, just there might be something in this. And then you look back and you go, no, that's just a sales pitch really behind that. So, I trust, and I've met some fantastic people that are at the front line, and they tend to be behind closed doors. They're not sticking their heads out on YouTube, or even to do a podcast. You would never even dream to do a podcast. These are the guys that just go about their work every day, and it's just natural to them. And I buzz off those type of people. Like, I get great satisfaction out of meeting those individuals and listening to the stories. And they're very measured people, and you kind of have to extract this information. And we speak a lot about it to business owners, is to try and harness the expertise and the longevity of the knowledge that these boys can transfer onto other people within the organization, so that when these people retire, that they leave a legacy behind them. And again, I don't think enough has been done about that.
Yeah, I love the thought of legacy being left behind. Now I'm getting a bit older in years now. It's something I firmly believe that we actually have to think about what we leave behind for those who follow after us. So I thoroughly agree with you on that. Just a couple of quick questions, Gavin. All right.
Yeah.
Gavin Coyle's definition of safety is?
Protecting people's livelihoods.
Good.
And
Only reason I ask that is just because I think we could sit a dozen safety people in a room and put a little cone of silence around them, and we could ask them, and we'd struggle to find exactly the same definition. So it's always interesting to me to find out what people think it is. The second one is, and again one that a lot of people debate to and from, and I'm not smart enough to have an opinion, Gavin.
no, neither am I. So I don't know why you're asking me.
Safety culture, is it something that's real?
A short answer on that would be difficult, I would suggest, Tom. I've just finished a safety culture assessment tool, and I've looked and we've researched the HSC in the UK and their version and their model, if you like, on safety culture. And then we looked at the SCAT model in the USA and how they've looked at safety culture. And then I've looked at the Aviation Centre. And an interesting thing came out of the research was there's a national culture that people don't probably take into consideration. And then you obviously have a business culture, and then you have a safety culture. And I think people have tried to pigeonhole safety culture as it's a one thing. Safety culture is really just a survey of the health of where your workforce, in my opinion, where your workforce feels your company is in terms of managing health and safety. That's it, in my estimation. But that then should integrate into the overall business culture, and it should be fluid. There shouldn't be any sort of restriction in that communication. But the added layer from the aviation industry of a national culture was interesting to me.
Yeah, look, I can't ever say that there's a wrong or right thing for these definitions. It's just interesting to get other people's points of view. The fact that you've done some research and that tells me I did ask the right question, because a bit more learned than me. All right. Getting towards the end here, Gavin. What's in the future? What are we looking for from Gavin Coyle in the future?
Well, I think for the future for health and safety, I would be concerned and I don't want to be putting the fear factor out. We've got an aging workforce, especially in health and safety. We've got an aging workforce. We have a lot of demand on production output across the world with a lack of labor or a lack of available labor. It's probably the labor's there, but whether the people want to do some of the work that has to be done to achieve the projects and everything else that has to be done is another thing. And without getting into the global macroeconomic outputs of which I have no authority on, from a safety perspective, I can only see a pressure being put on safety globally in the next 5 to 10 years based on the mix that's in there at the moment. Still the race to finish jobs as fast as ever. There's still, this sort of, moving on, next job. And the capacity of the companies that are trying to meet the expectations of these projects, I fear for the capacity of those companies that they're winning projects and they probably should be saying a lot more no's than yeses, and they're not.
Yes.
So there's a brain drain that number one, we don't have enough health and safety people. That's recognized globally. Number two, the workforce is just not there. So then we've got a competency issue on the ground. And number three, the projects are still going as fast as ever they were.
Yeah. Bleak it is, but it's actually based in reality, I'd suggest. We certainly are struggling for labour, as you said, available labour over here, and have for the last 2 years. And I don't see it getting better in the short term either. All right, I'm going to ask you a question, and you can choose not to answer this one. You've talked about training programs. You've talked about some of these sales gimmicks. Do you care to name any of them?
When we talk about my biggest, and this, I don't want to talk about one particular company because a lot of companies have jumped the bandwagon. I have no issues with e-learning. I think it was a great innovation, and innovation is something that hasn't been to the forefront of health and safety. Let's be fair about it. A lot of other industries have moved much more ahead of us. But what a bugbear of mine would be the mental health side of things, where there's been a sort of a marketing guru push on, we need to introduce mental health programs within the workplace. And I see it in Europe, where they now have mental health first aiders. And you're going, oh my God, if a guy's having a down day or a bad day, that he can go up to the crane driver or the teleporter driver or the tradesman or the girl in the office or whatever and say, I'm having a bit of a bad day. You're the mental health first aider. Do you mind if we have a chat? And then, seriously, guys, we're really bordering on very thin ice with regards to people's personal mental issues, which I acknowledge that we should do something, but should be done in the spirit of thank you for informing us. We're very grateful that you share that information with us. We now need to understand, what are you doing as an individual to sort of solve this issue for yourself? And then based on that, then we'll produce a risk assessment within our own environment so that we can allow for you as a person to perform at the best of your ability. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is the industry is pushing everybody in towards doing mental health programs, and it's blurring the line between home place and workplace. From where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, Gavin Coyle, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you tonight, and I wish you well with the book. I'll just let you know I just ordered a copy in the last 5 minutes, so apparently the 11th of August, apparently it's coming, so that'll be good. But
the Kindle version is free, Tom.
You're a good man, aren't you? Everyone, I always say people should go out and get Kindle books because you can take them everywhere and it doesn't waste a lot of paper. But that's excellent.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've already paid for that.
The
real me. No, I'm not. Gonna look good on my bookcase here behind me. But Brilliant. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, Gavin. Thanks so much for your time tonight, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
No problem, Tom, and thanks very much for having me, and well done on the podcast.
Thanks for listening to Health and Safety Conversations with Tom Bourne. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week.